morning. Welcome to the October meeting of the Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory Board. As the general custom, we start with 3 minutes of public comment. I have a list of a few names, and if you didn't get a chance to sign, that's okay. Bob Damewood.
Hi, thank you. My name is Bob Damewood. I'm a staff attorney with Regional Housing Legal Services. We represent Pittsburgh United, which is an advocacy organization that advocated for the creation of this fund. There's a couple things I wanted to bring up. One is, I guess, the small landlord fund is going to be presented to the URA board. And I would ask that you take another look at the way that the fund guidelines are written, because as it's written, there's no protection against displacement and rent increases. And it's really not clear what a priority for housing choice vouchers is. And so, I'd be glad to work with you on that if you like, but I hope that you take a look at that. The second thing I'd like to point out is, so today, the advisory board is going to consider its fourth or fifth, I've lost count, but its fourth or fifth homeownership project with a 99-year affordability term. And I know there are some suggested changes to the HOF legislation that are floating around. One of them is to eliminate the priority for permanent, or change the definition of permanent housing from 99 years to, 30 or 40. Depending on homeownership or rental. I just want to point out that, this is the fact that you're going to consider your fourth or fifth application for a 99-year affordability term today is evidence that, it's feasible, right? If it wasn't feasible, developers wouldn't be coming to you with projects with a 99-year affordability term. And if you look at all the homeownership projects that you've approved to date, it's about a 4-to-1 difference between 99-year versus 30-year. And so I hope, please don't touch the affordability terms or the definition of permanent affordability. And that kind of leads me to the last thing, which is, there's a number of challenges and opportunities that we have. So for instance, the rental assistance fund, which I can't remember what it's called right now, is running out of money, right? And I guess there are some community meetings where there are some homeowners who said they were just over the income limit. They can't afford to take out loans to fix their homes. They really need access to grants. This is, these are challenges, but these are, opportunities that if we work together, it's budget season, right? If we documented this need and then came to the city and said, this is what the need is, and this is what we need to fix it, looking at the, excess RTT revenue that's going to, so there's about $3 million per year that's projected to come in. Anyway, so let's get to it. So rather, instead of fighting each other on changes to the HOF legislation, let's get the advocates and the URA and the advisory board together and try to expand the fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I think it's me. Just a couple of things.
Just say your name for Gloria's
Swain
minutes.
Uber I think she already's got it. Just wanted to invite, I think everyone's already received an invitation for tomorrow. I'm kind of channeling Celeste. She's not feeling particularly well. It's a lunch with Nora Lichtash and I forget the other man.
Michael Anderson.
And Michael Anderson, I think flying in from much further away than Nora's coming in from across the state. Please do try to come to that. They've been doing this for longer than we have. They know all the best practices, etc. They've been fighting and would love to help us along in this fight, both you all as advisory board members and us as advocates and members of the community. So please, if you can, squeeze it in 12 to 2. Just to echo Bob's comments on the small landlord fund, this, as we all know, it's a huge need and it's a huge opportunity. I think we need to be very careful and cognizant of the choices we're making in these guidelines, both to avoid displacement, but also take advantage of the opportunity that is before us to actually increase that utilization rate. I mean, as Knowledge is well aware, it's low. Pittsburgh is uniquely, well, not uniquely, there's a struggle around the country for this sort of utilization of vouchers, but Pittsburgh is having some particular issues when it comes to that. So maybe incorporating source of income, and I understand this is at the URI, but maybe incorporating source of income requirements or the acceptance of a voucher when someone comes with one, and length of affordability and those sorts of things. So as Bob said, I think Bob's come up with a list of potential amendments, or is going to. So it'd be great to have that go forward. I believe there is a URA slot on the board still missing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That would be great to have it filled. We love our URA friends. I know that obviously Diamante, I believe, is in a different slot, and this was prior to kind of her shifting up in the URA. I'm not sure whether or not there's procedures to kind of renominate someone for a different slot and then have a community member in that slot. I'm not sure how that works, but maybe that's an avenue forward. And then the chair. I know there's been kind of, we'll deal with the issue of the chair once we have a full board. We're getting pretty close to a full board. I know there had been discussions of Joanna being the chair, and I mean, we would all still give our full-throated support for that. So if we can get that ball rolling, that'd be great as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry if I'm not reading the name correctly. Raymond Moore. Hi.
Good morning. My name is Raymond Moore. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator with the Fair Housing Partnership of Greater Pittsburgh. All right. Jay Dorn and Megan Confer-Hammond couldn't make today's meeting. They extend their appreciation to Jessica for an invitation to speak today, but a 24-hour time frame was not possible with their schedules this week, but they're happy to schedule to speak next month. To touch on the subject that we're all acutely aware of, FHP comments each month that dispersing housing-related funds in the city requires an understanding of how those funds impact our city's status quo of racial segregation. To be blunt, the recently released report, Pittsburgh's Inequality Across Gender and Race, underscored our message. It bears repeating that Pittsburgh's racial segregation negatively impacts Black Pittsburghers so severely that if they were to just simply move out of the city, their quality of life improves. Therefore, we're commenting up front today's agenda so as to ensure that the fair housing impact of the scheduled topics can be addressed in a timely manner during your regular order. Regarding 5635 Stanton Avenue, we ask that you recognize that Stanton Avenue is a long-standing line of racial demarcation between Highland Park and East Liberty, with clear-cut racial disparity between the two neighborhoods. Therefore, we ask that it's identified how the specific site interacts on a border with a 41.4% differential in Black populations. Pending that outcome, we ask whether the recipients of the funds are obligated by the HOF to affirmatively market the rental units to ensure that the development of the units doesn't result in greater racial segregation. Was this issue discussed, or will it be discussed prior to any approval of funding? Regarding the programmatic nature of the additional agenda items, we ask that the HOF recognize that the publication of the HOF's successes showcase Pittsburghers across all protected classes. What are the number of Black residents who have benefited from the homeownership program? We'll spotlight the HOF's homeownership program due to Pittsburgh's racial disparity in homeownership, specifically a 41.6% differential based on race in context out of 100 cities. Pittsburgh falls within the bottom-ranked 15 cities that have the widest homeownership gaps based on race. If the HOF's homeownership programs aren't allowing for Black homeownership, then that's indicative of a problem that needs to be addressed. Has this been evaluated? If so, what are the results? Are the results positive? And can those results be replicated? Do homeownership programs require additional resources to ensure a halt to any perpetuation of segregation? These are the questions from a fair housing perspective. We hope that you will take them seriously. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to give public comment? Okay,
Just one,
oh,
sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
Rick Swartz with the Bloomfield Garfield Corporation. Just to echo Bob Damewood's comments about this new small landlord program fund, I think the concept is well considered. I think the problem obviously is these will be loans. They will largely be installment payment loans. To give you an idea of how they could have an impact on a particular property, if I borrow, say, $35,000 at a 3% interest rate for 5 years, my monthly payment is going to be around $629 a month. So if I've got 4 units in that house, and let's assume there are 4 two-bedroom units renting currently for $650 a month, I'm going to have to add about $150 a month to each rent in order to come up with the additional $629 a month that I need on that mortgage payment. So I think it would be good before this program goes to the URA board for approval is that we take another look at just some of the basic guidelines and whether there are opportunities for deferral of principal repayment, whether there are opportunities for a different amortization schedule, and how do we, in some way, shape, or form, protect the tenants who are living in the house currently. So you may say, well, no one's going to borrow $35,000 and turn around and evict the 4 tenants they have in the property currently, and that's probably true. Most landlords are not going to want to do that. But you have to be able to kind of square the circle, so to speak, and be able to generate more revenue from the project, from the house, in order to be able to meet that loan payment. I think there should also be some opportunity for owner-occupied 4-bedroom, 4-unit buildings. In many neighborhoods, such as Oakland, you're really trying to incentivize owner-occupied rental property, and with units that are 2, 3, or 4 unit buildings, there's an opportunity to do that. So perhaps some of the incentives around deferral of principal repayment can be directed towards people who actually live in the property. So I think those are just some ideas. And as Bob said, if folks from URA or from the advisory board want to engage in more dialogue around these terms and conditions, groups like ours are more than happy to be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to deviate real fast before we call roll. And usually we just listen to public comment, but since 3 speakers spoke about the Small Landlord Fund, I do want to make a quick comment on it. It has not gone in front of this advisory board. It is not an HOF source program. So that is why you have not seen it discussed here or the program guidelines of it. We did discuss it publicly at the URA board meeting last month. It was immediately posted on our website and with an email for public comment. We have not received any comments on it. So I will state that the plan is for final guidelines to go next month. So if there is any public comment in writing that anyone would like to submit, please do so by tomorrow because the board is next week. And I am more than willing to talk with anybody, after this meeting or at some other time regarding the guidelines and what some of the thought process was, but it really is meant to help with the immediate crisis of Section 8 vouchers being returned. But we can walk through the payment procedures, as people have questions. Okay, anything else from the advisory board or the public before we call roll?
Regarding the small landlord fund, when did you say it was going to the URA board?
It went, the draft guidelines were made public and posted on our website a month ago, and the plan is to take it next Thursday.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I had a chance to see those or weigh in, so
Okay.
can you make sure it's distributed to us?
Sure, we can send it out, but like I said, it was not sent to the committee because it is sourced by non-HOF funding, and it is on www.ura.org on the HOF page, right, Evan? It was posted on the HOF page.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, let's call roll. Lena Andrews.
Here.
Jamil Bay, not here. Joanna Dimming. Here. Knowledge Build Hudson.
I'm here.
Jerome Jackson.
Here.
Ethel Johnson.
Here.
Teresa Kell Smith.
Here.
Mark Masterson.
Here.
Samuel Sue.
Here.
Sonia Tillman, not here. Derek Tillman.
Here.
Diamante Walker, not here. Kelly Ware Seaborn.
Here.
And Megan Winters is not here. Okay. I would like to make an introduction of a new advisory board member. For those of you that were not here last month, we had 3 members join us last month. That's Kelly Ware Seabron with the Fair Housing Advocate position on the board, Knowledge Build Hudson with the Housing Authority position, and Megan Winters, who's not here today, but she was here last month with the West End position. And today I would like to introduce Ethel Johnson, who is the tenant representative on the advisory board. Welcome, Ms. Johnson. Would you like to introduce yourself? And also a West End resident. Would you like to introduce yourself, just a couple sentences?
Like you said, my name is Ethel Johnson, and I've lived in the West End most of my life. I have been a volunteer in various organizations since the late 70s, and right now I'm a representative of the scattered sites under the HACP, and I'm happy to be here.
We're super happy to have you. And just feel free to ask us any questions during this. Also, I will admit sometimes we get into acronyms. And if you don't know any acronyms, just ask the folks around you or ask me.
I'm trying to learn them.
And I'm going to say how thrilled I am that 3 people from the board are from District 2. So,
All right. Okay.
including myself.
And I would also like to introduce some new staff. You see kind of a team over here right now, and I want to talk briefly about what is happening with this. When the Housing Opportunity Fund first went into place, and the advisory board was, the first meeting was held in July 2018. We didn't know what the allocation plan was going to be at the time, so we hired a few folks to help kind of with the building of the programs, and now we know what our programs are, and we're moving forward. The URA, we are figuring out how to structure the programs with our existing programs. So we are really dividing, we created a new center which includes existing housing functions, and it's called the Center for Housing Opportunities at the URA, so I'm super excited to announce that. And so that includes, the original housing functions, the original housing staff, and then we're bringing on some new staff as well, since these programs are expanding. And so the staff that you see is not always fully funded by HOF administration money. I want to let the advisory board know that, but all of our salaries are funded by a mix of the HOF advisory or the HOF administration money, but also administration money that the URA has for other programs, because now some of our programs will be, we will be putting together like the home repair programs, so rather they're funded by CDBG or they're funded by HOF, but really the reason for that is to make it more seamless to the consumer. So someone is applying for a home rehab program now, and they don't need to know all the differences of the programs. So that's what we're trying to get to, but I do want you to see some of the faces that you will be working with and that the public will be working with. So you all know Sharon. Sharon, stand up. Sharon has been with us for a while, and she's been a long time URA employee and working very hard on the homeowner assistance program, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. And you know Vatina as well. And then the folks in the back, Jamie is, her brilliant policy and analytic skills is now going to be used by the entire URA and not just our department. So she is moving up to work in the executive department, but you will still see her from time to time as she helps us with our data. Dan is in the executive department with Diamante and is here just to learn today. And then Brianna, if you can stand up. She has just started with us. She will primarily be working on the housing stabilization program. And recently worked for Department of Human Services. So she brings a skill set for that. And Derek Kendall Morris, a lot of you know him. He was working for Habitat for Humanity and has joined a team to work on all of our various home repair programs. So super excited to have him. And Jeremy Carter, some of you know him as well, is going to help manage the crew, and he comes from Community Human Services, where he was there for a lot of years. So super excited about the new team. Where our side of the department is very much consumer focused. We still overlap with development, and Evan and I still dabble in development, but we're becoming a very consumer-focused team. So,
sounds great. Welcome, everyone. How will this affect kind of the identity of the Opportunity Fund and kind of how we communicate about it as opposed to everything else?
I would love to have conversations with the advisory board about that as we move forward. We've been talking about it. Bettina and I just had this conversation earlier this week. I don't have clear-cut answers for you right now. Anything else based on that?
Is there an organization chart so people can understand what the changes are, and is that something that can be distributed to the advisory board?
Yeah, give me like another week to finalize as Tom Cummings and I are kind of sorting that out, but we will get that to you.
And do you anticipate any additional hires in the coming
Not
year?
at this time. No.
Okay.
No.
I mean, I think it would be nice to have those conversations with us too, so we're not just surprised at a meeting
Yeah.
that there's all this new staff. It's
Right.
welcome aboard. It's good to have them, and
Yeah.
I know that they definitely need the help because I know you're getting a lot of calls from our area. But it would just be nice to get some update ahead of time.
Yep.
Did you hire a director? Was that posted, or did I miss?
Executive Director for the URA.
I'm sorry, no, for the for this new Center for Housing Opportunities unit.
No, we're not. I mean, we're working that stuff out, but I mean, I'm the director of Housing Opportunity Fund, and Tom Cummings is the director of really housing development, and
Okay.
together we are the Center for Housing Opportunities.
I'm sorry, I
So,
thought I
yeah.
saw something posted
No.
that looked something like that.
Nope. But there is just speak in one sentence, and Diamante's not here, but there is, of course, Adrian can't hear me. Adrian, can you hear me now?
Sorry, I've been trying to keep on mute in case you can hear me.
Can,
I can hear you
okay,
regularly, but that's about it.
okay.
The
Well,
folks who were giving testimony were good, but I can't seem to hear anything.
okay, so I just encourage all members to speak directly into the microphones. Everybody's scooting their microphone up towards them, Adrian, so hopefully that will help.
We're going to get new microphones.
And I just wanted to give one more sentence, which is, of course, the general public knows that the URA is undergoing a strategic plan right now, and so all these discussions have correlated with, us working on the strategic plan. Okay. Moving on in the agenda, the first item for review today is 5635 Stanton Avenue, and Evan Miller will be coming on up.
What allocation is this out of?
This is
2020?
out of 2019. We are now into 2019 money for rental gap programs, so if you had to abstain for 2018 funding, you can now stay at the table. If you do, however, think that there is a chance that you will be applying for 2019 rental gap program funding, you do need to excuse yourself at this point.
Okay, I'm going to recuse myself.
Oh, thank you. Lena is excusing herself from Action Housing. Anybody else? Jerome from Operation Better Block.
I'm recusing myself as well, but I may have a question. So how do we want to handle that?
I guess it
I'm
depends.
recusing myself from voting, but I still
Okay, why don't you
have a
just
comment.
at the end, if your question has not been answered by the
Sure.
discussion, you can ask when you come
Yep,
back.
all right.
Okay. And Jerome just pointed out to me, I forgot to ask for the review and approval of the minutes, so if we could
So
do that.
moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to recuse myself as well.
Okay, and
Is this-
Sam
are we-
is
can we just
recusing
vote
himself
this
as
already?
well.
And for the
What's
minutes, okay.
if it's a rent to home ownership development, does that fit under rental or home ownership?
This particular
No, I'm
one is a
saying-
rental
No, I'm
development.
asking. A potential project if it's rental to home ownership.
Um,
Rent to own, would that be a rental money or home ownership?
It probably would not be under rental because rental has to be 5 units or more. So I guess it depends if it fits the definition of the for sale development program.
This is rental.
Okay.
All right. Good morning. My name's Evan Miller with the Housing Opportunity Fund here. Since we have some new members, we'll just do a quick refresh on the rental gap program. It's meant for the preservation and or creation of affordable rental housing, specifically 5 units or more, actually 4 units or more. We're addressing that sort of 1 to 4 gap with this small landlord fund that will hopefully be rolled out soon. But this is meant to be gap financing for projects that are close to closing. We want to typically try and be the last money in or one of the last sources in, so that the project has the ability to close and move forward. So today we have one project in the rental gap program, and that's 5635 Stanton Avenue. And the developer applicant here is Stanton Avenue Associates LP. This project is right along the border of East Liberty and Highland Park along Stanton Avenue, technically on the Highland Park side of it. The nature of the project is the renovation and preservation of 11 affordable rental units. So this is a very large, stately, historic mansion right on Stanton Avenue that was acquired in 1995 by the Highland Park Community Development Corporation, HPCDC, as well as the Bloomfield Garfield Corporation. They created this partnership called Stanton Avenue Associates LP with the goal of restoring this mansion that had kind of fallen into vacancy and disrepair over the years prior. It consists of a large mansion right on Stanton Avenue, as well as a carriage house that fronts Mellon Street in behind of that larger house on Stanton. So back in the mid-90s, in order to preserve the building, they applied for low-income housing tax credits and were awarded those, and then also received some matching funding in state historic tax credits and loans from the URA. So since this project has come to exist in its current form, it's been an affordable housing option in that neighborhood. And the goal is to keep it as such. Stanton Avenue Associates does not want to turn this into a market rate development, and they're looking to preserve that affordable nature of the project. That being said, it's an older home. There's a lot of costly repairs that it's due for. So they're coming to the Housing Opportunity Fund for looking for funding to do some critical exterior repairs, improving rotting wood throughout the exterior of the home. Exterior doors need to be replaced, and there's also window replacement and parts that need to be addressed. And then as a kind of byproduct of the issues with the exterior, there's also interior repairs from water penetration that need to take place. And they've also secured some funding to fix up their roof as well on the main Stanton Avenue portion of the project. So the project is presently occupied, fully occupied, and primarily by long-term tenants, people that will be there for, seems like 10 plus years, maybe even more. Some from the start of when it was renovated back in the 90s. So as part of the rental gap program, in exchange for this financing, there's typically an income restriction that is recorded on the property. So in this case, all 11 units are currently rented affordably. We're proposing today that the HOF funds be tied to 8 of those affordable units for households at or below 50% AMI. Our rationale for not doing all 11 is that should a longtime resident, get over that 50% mark, we don't want them to have to move out of their longtime home. So that's why we're kind of allowing for that 3-unit buffer there. So the requested amount from Stanton Avenue Associates was $110,000, and that's the amount that we're recommending here today. It would all be taken from the 50% set aside of the 2019 rental gap line item, and this would be a 0% interest loan. We're proposing a 15-year term, part of it being an amortizing loan, and then part cash flow. We think this project is overall in pretty good condition, and that's partly because they have a well-funded reserve, and we don't want to hinder their ability to continue putting funds into that reserve and their ability to sustain the project long term. So collateral for this loan would be a subordinate lien position on the property located at 5635 Stanton Avenue, and the affordability period that would be attached to this financing and for those 8 units would be for 30 years. Looking at the sources, it's a relatively simple project. This loan would be about $110,000, and then they have a $40,000 bank loan to complete the rest of the project, mostly the roof, which they're hoping to get started on quite soon here. So I've broken down in section F the uses of the funds, but it's primarily, interior renovations in both units or both structures on the property, a replacement of the roof on Stanton Avenue, and then some exterior renovations on both. Kind of already touched on this, the reason for their HOF request, but they're renting affordably right now in this location, and need to seek an alternative form of financing. Bank financing alone would probably prove to be too costly for them to do all the repairs that they absolutely need here. So a source like HOF rental gap program allows them to make those necessary improvements while also being able to preserve that affordable mission of the project. There are no supportive services for this property particularly. We do see that with some other rental gap projects, typically larger ones, tax credit deals. However, this is operated by Bloomfield Garfield Corporation and the Highland Park CDC, so they're community oriented, and they're prepared to work with tenants that might have a temporary crisis, and BGC actually operates a crisis fund that assists their tenants should extenuating circumstances arise in their personal situation. From an MWBE standpoint, the URA, those requirements get triggered at $250,000 of total project cost. So this is actually under that. Meanwhile, the developer will still be encouraged to market this project as equitably as possible, to look through listings from the URA and elsewhere on potential MWBE firms that they can secure to do some of this work. The project benefit has kind of been outlined, but again, this is a win for both sides in that the city and its residents are going to have long-term affordability in a couple of neighborhoods where that's quickly vanishing. And meanwhile, BGC and Highland Park CDC in their partnership are able to continue operating this project in an affordable manner, which is what they would like to do. If this property were to rent at market rate, it's extremely likely that none of the current residents would be able to remain in that location. So just a quick overview of their scoring. The project is ready to start any in the next couple of months throughout, they'll do some work throughout the winter and then finish it up in the spring. So they received full points there. Capacity of the development team is also receiving high marks between Bloomfield Garfield Corporation, Highland Park CDC, and then their property manager, NDC Asset Management firm. They take extremely good care of this property. We were out there with a construction advisor, and it's in relatively good shape. These are just problems that come about with age. To that point, cost reasonableness, it is a reasonable project. What they're asking to do, and the funding that they're asking for does seem in line with the needs that we observed at the property. They're not asking for the maximum amount per unit, which would be 30,000 in this case, so they also receive points for that. And then from a policy standpoint, looking at their term of affordability, their nonprofit participation, and various P4 metrics, including affordable housing and connectivity, they score pretty highly. And then there's other things that, you know, by the nature of it being an older home, they can't necessarily score on, like having extremely efficient units or from an energy standpoint. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. We have the Bloomfield Garfield Corporation, Rick Swartz, here in attendance to answer any questions that there might be about the ownership and management of the building.
Any questions, comments?
Rick, did you have any comments in response to Ray's questions?
No, just that time catches up with everything. We have a funded replacement reserve, a little over $20,000. We didn't want to drain it to be able to tackle the exterior improvements in particular. So this is an example, I think, of how you can use the Housing Opportunity Fund to preserve existing housing that's already affordable. We're now in year 24 of the rental period. We're proposing to go another 30 years on top of that. So for a 54-year period, this will be affordable housing. We do not want to sell the property. The two organizations discussed that option at one point because the capital improvements have grown to be as much as you see today. So we're appreciative of the fact that there is now a program here that can help an existing building remain affordable.
I guess I was speaking to the race question about like the demographics in the building and it being on that line.
Yeah, it's all African American tenants, and we have Section 8 voucher holders as well. I think 3 of the 11 units are voucher holders.
I have a question in regards to the services. So is there any proactive services that you guys can provide for the residents, like connecting them to resources or opportunities versus being reactionary to like issues?
So through the Bloomfield Garfield Corporation, we manage the East Side Neighborhood Employment Center. So residents have the ability to use that facility for job searches, for resume prep. They want to improve their employment situation. We also have, as was alluded to earlier, a program called Neighbors in Need. So it has been customary for NDC, the management company, to refer people to the BGC who have fallen behind in their rent. And we arrange for grants of up to $500 to $600 to help residents catch up with rent. We also are connected with after-school programs. We don't have any school-age children now in this building. Some of the tenants originally had younger children. Those children have grown and moved on. We don't get much turnover in the building. The rents here range from about $500 a month to about $700 a month. So I don't know if that was called out in the background material you have. So with 110,000, it gets back to the earlier comment I made about the small landlord program fund. If we were to borrow the money conventionally, we would have to raise rents. And I know for at least some of those tenants, any kind of an increase beyond $50 a year would be a struggle.
Great. Thanks, Rick. Anybody else? Or can I have a motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
Okay, Mark moved to approve. Kelly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Councilwoman Smith abstains. Motion passes. Thank you. And I'll just, actually, when people move, if they can read it for the minutes. So it's approval of the loan in the amount of $110,000 through, I'm looking for my agenda, but the commitment will expire on February 1st, 2020.
Do you need me to read
No,
that? Or
that's
you
okay.
read it? Okay, great. Fantastic.
Sorry. Okay.
I do have a
Yes.
question about the energy matrix that we're using and the fact that old buildings are not going to be able to qualify. Is there something that can be done to encourage energy efficiency? And maybe that's an opportunity to look at something new and to request more funds to help the city meet its energy efficiency goals. Is there something that can be done there that takes into account a lot of the buildings that we're going to be working with are old buildings? It's the nature of Pittsburgh. So
It's a
again,
really
it does,
good
you don't have to
question.
answer
We
that
can
right
look
now.
into
but
that, yeah. And I don't know, Evan, if Evan's on our green team at the URA. I don't know if you have some ideas to that.
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
No, but
We'll look
it's a
into
good-
it, Mark. Okay, next up is the module development in Garfield. Evan.
So I think some people could
Oh,
come
yes,
back to the table.
Lena and-
Is-
and
this is a
others can
for
come
sale deal.
So if you feel like you or your agency or anybody that you have an affiliation with, it would be applying for the for sale development program out of the, we're in the 2018 allocation. We'll still be in the 2018 allocation probably for a little while. You can abstain at this point.
How many additional votes are there? Is this just the last vote we have, or is there another one? I have
yeah.
my agenda, but I don't have my glasses. So-
Yeah, this is, I think, the last vote we need for today. This
Okay, so
coming
can
one.
I just register an I vote? I have to go to an event with the.
Okay, thank you,
Internationals.
Councilwoman.
Okay, thank you.
So noted that Councilwoman Smith, Kel Smith registered a I vote for the module development. Anybody else need to abstain? Jerome and Lena came back to the table. Sam and Derek are abstaining for the for sale line item. Okay, go ahead, Evan.
Okay, so this is a for sale development program deal, FSDP.
Hold on 1 second. Do you have a
Being
question?
that I'm not aware of what you're talking about, may I abstain from the votes as well?
Okay, we will talk about it. That's fine. We'll mark you as abstaining, and let's
Is that-
talk before the next meeting, and I'll explain it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so just a quick background on this program. It's meant to provide similar construction financing to projects that feature for sale development. So the purpose of it is to increase the inventory of affordable for sale housing throughout the city. And typically, actually with both these programs, the rental gap and the for sale development program, it's for nonprofit applicants. But if it is a for-profit developer, a nonprofit partner is required. So that's what we have here today. This is module design with Bloomfield Garfield Corporation doing a project called the Blackstreet development, and particularly the affordable unit that we'll be discussing today is 5456 Blackstreet. So this project is part of a 3-home development in Garfield. It's all new construction on 3 contiguous currently vacant lots in the 5400 block of Blackstreet. The Pittsburgh-based startup Module is they're kind of specializing in this innovative design of right-sized modular prefabricated homes that provide both high energy efficiency, but also extremely comfortable living standards as well. These will all be designed to Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready home standards. So we see that as something that will both provide long-term value for a buyer, but also monthly savings as well. The unit at 5456 Black Street is going to be sold affordably to households at 80% of the area median income or below. It's an 1,100 square foot home with 2 bedrooms and 1.5 baths. As I mentioned, Module is working in conjunction with Bloomfield Garfield Corporation on this project. BGC in Module submitted a executed memorandum of understanding as part of the application, and BGC has been helpful in forming the community's housing and land use plan, and one of the main tenets being the infill of vacant lots with healthy, affordable housing. So Module and BGC will work to market and sell this home to an appropriate buyer that is at or below 80% AMI, which is a stipulation of this program. The construction is expected to begin in November, assuming the closing timeline goes smoothly. It should close later this month, with about an 8-month construction timeline. Their hope is to sell around May of 2020. So looking at the unit, the anticipated sales price is going to be $183,794. However, the anticipated amount to actually be financed by the buyer is going to be around $127,911, and this comes from a proposed second mortgage, an NHP. The acronym is escaping me. NHP.
A neighborhood housing program.
Yeah, that's a deferred second mortgage of $50,000, and then also with the anticipation that this buyer would tap into the HOF down payment and closing cost assistance program for $7,500. That would bring their amount to be financed to $127,911, which we've put into an affordability analysis, and that is affordable to a household of 3 at or below 80% AMI. And that would be the kind of target household that this would likely be, best suited for. So making that affordable to that level was extremely important, and that's why there's some partnership from other sources at the URA as well here. So the proposed grant today that we're asking for authorization for is $70,000, all in the form of a grant with an affordability period of 99 years. So that deed restriction would be recorded on the unit, mandating that upon resale it be sold to a household at or below 80% AMI at that time, going on for 99 years. So I do want to correct something in the packet on section E. It says deed restrictions will be recorded for 6 units. That is a typo, needed to be taken out. My apologies. So it's just one unit, that will be receiving a deed restriction here.
So one of the 2 of the 3?
Yeah, so the 3 of the 3, 1 is affordable, 1 is going to be sold at market rate, and then 1 is a duplex where it will be rented on one floor, and then the top section is actually going to be like a show home for Module. Since it is a startup, their plan for, I believe, the next, it's either like 3 to 5 years, is to have that be a show home, and then I believe after that time period sell that home as well, as a 2-unit duplex. So
the renter will have to leave?
Not
The
necessarily.
affordability wouldn't necessarily be on that property.
Right, yeah, there's not, the HOF FSDP money is going solely towards the affordable unit, so there will be no restriction on that duplex. Looking at the sources here for the affordable unit, the total development costs are about $290,000, $70,000 of which would come from the FSDP grant. Module is putting in about $33,000 in their own equity. They have a construction loan with Dollar Bank for all 3 units. This is one project, so this is one large construction loan, but that's the amount. About $129,000 from that Dollar Bank loan, and then Pittsburgh Housing Construction Fund, which is a source out of the URA, is providing a $33,000 construction grant as well to help lower that end sales price for the end buyer, and then corporate sponsorships of $25,000. That's coming from vendors who are providing high-performing windows, appliances, HVAC, who they want to see their materials used in a somewhat innovative project like this. Looking at the uses, this is a prefabricated home. It's constructed in a factory a couple hours north of here, so that totals $85,000. There is preparation on site that has to take place so that the site can, accept this modular unit. That's $135,000, and then the price of the appliances is around $23,000, and then the rest goes to their general contractor's overhead and then other various taxes and fees. MWBE, the status for this project is that the narrative has been approved and they're close to having a final plan approved. There would not be a closing unless their MWBE plan is approved by the URA's Performance and Compliance Department. As far as a project benefit goes, there's not really any market for or inventory of housing that's turnkey of this quality in Garfield that's selling for anything close to this price. So the idea of having an affordable unit in Garfield new build is extremely attractive, and although expensive, I think the module is sort of seeing this as proof of concept and would like to see the scalability take foothold here and possibly lower costs in the future. So it's a project worth trying that on, because the end result is an affordable unit in Garfield, which is not really possible right now without an intervention from a source such as HOF. And then just looking at their scoring criteria for their for sale, this project is going to close in the next month or two, so they received high marks there. The capacity for the development team, I'd actually want to correct this. They scored a 10 on this, where all members of the development team demonstrate a strong track record. It's probably more a 5 here because Module has been working to get units going, but a project of this magnitude they have not done. Meanwhile, other members of the development team, such as BGC, they have experience marketing affordable units, know how to vet buyers. And then also the contractor, AZA Builders, they recently completed a modular build actually just a couple blocks away at Negley and Hayes. So most of the development team is extremely familiar with this, and we do have confidence that Module has thought this through. But cost reasonableness, this is a little bit more expensive than a stick build. However, with the high quality materials and potential savings that we see down the line for the end buyer, we do believe that is justified, and our construction department has reviewed the prices that have been put forth and do believe that they are cost reasonable for what is being purchased. From a policy objective standpoint and P4 scoring, they scored extremely well, 54 out of 60. Because this is a new build and it's completely energy efficient, it's located in a very transit-rich part of the city, as well as providing an option for affordable housing. They scored 54 out of 60 points there. So We have Lou and Brian here from Module, and then also Rick Swartz from BGC, who is the partner with the nonprofit partner on this project, is also here, who has spoke already. So I'll stop there and open this up for any questions. And thank you.
I just have a question about the pending NHP. Does that seem like something that's definitely going to happen?
Yeah, we were actually at the Real Estate Loan Review Committee for the URA yesterday, and they did approve it.
Okay. No, that's fine. I just, without it, it's still not affordable. And
right.
so
No, it's a vital part of the project, and we have secured that. Yeah.
Right. And it'll have final approval at the URA board next week, the same time DHOF funding will.
I want to better understand the corporate sponsorship line item. So did they donate?
Can the module team come up to the mic?
Yeah, is it cash or their donated appliances, or their terms that the resident of the house will have to deal with? Or?
So the corporate sponsors, this is Brian from Module, Lowe's. So we reached out to the Lowe's Foundation, and they agreed to provide $20,000 of in-kind product. So there's a store account at the Lowe's that is in Homestead at the waterfront, and so that will be used to procure materials for the affordable home, and that helps. We reached out to several corporates because we're not a large developer that leverages low-income housing tax credits. This is our first time doing this, so we had to get creative. So Lowe's, $20,000 store credit at the their local location, and then Mitsubishi, which makes the HVAC units in the home, will actually be donating the not the installation, but the actual units in kind for this project. So there will be 2 in the upstairs and 1 in the downstairs for that affordable home. They'll be donating that in kind. Oh, yes, that's all. We also had a sort of a fundraiser event this April where we raised another $1,300 from ticket sales that we donated to the Bloomfield Garfield Corporation to help. It was $1,300. It's a small drop in the bucket, but it was our first subsidy that we got for the project. So that was in April of this year that we raised another $1,300 for the project.
What other projects have you done? You said you're pretty new, and this is a little bit bigger. So have you?
So the first home that we finished is in Friendship. It's, if you know the Octopus Garden in Friendship, sort of behind the Mario Lemieux home. It's a small 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom home there that we completed in April this year. That was our first full design build project, so it was exciting.
My understanding, the construction costs are like around $225 per square foot.
There's a full basement on this unit as well. So because there were existing foundations on the property. So with this particular site, there's some increased site costs because we basically have to dig out the existing foundation that was there. So I think that's why our costs are, if this were a flat site, our construction costs would be lower, but we have to work through that site cost challenge. But
what would that be if you didn't have the site challenges approximately?
I think there was probably additional, and Lou may know this because you're a bit closer to the numbers, but 60,000, would you say, in site costs total over the 3 units? So about an additional 60,000 in site costs because of that excavation and trenching that has to happen. So,
if on the flat side, our hard cost is around 150 to 170
for hard costs.
Yeah, for hard costs.
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, before this project, what was your experience then that you were like, we're gonna build houses? I mean, you had other experience with developers or development teams?
About our company or background or why?
Before the company existed, you brought...
Oh, yeah, my background, I worked in affordable housing, Biloxi, Mississippi, post-Katrina for a nonprofit architecture firm. So we did a lot of disaster recovery after Hurricane Ike and Katrina there. I worked in a lot of impact-driven architecture world, so the social impact, public interest design world, directed a documentary on the global housing crisis, and did a Fulbright scholarship looking at how do we bring good quality housing to places outside of the United States, and wanted to move back to my hometown of Pittsburgh to really apply some of the lessons that I had learned and build a team around doing equitable housing development in Pittsburgh. So that's the background.
Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I just had a question about the long-term savings for the end user because of the energy efficiency and how that would affect affordability.
Yeah, so we project, so in our first home for a customer, we just on Tuesday got an award from the U.S. Department of Energy for how energy efficient the building is for our first house. And so we think total utility costs, there could be a per month savings of up to $170 a month, because essentially the amount of insulation in the homes is much higher. The quality of the windows is much higher, and there's many less I call it penetrations in the building envelope. So when you have a lot of insulation, high quality windows, you don't have a bunch of screws going through the building, less heat escapes. And so we think that that's why we can have lower sort of HVAC draw for the house. And we in our measurements in sort of what the Department of Energy specs, that's what we can expect is up to $170 a month in terms of utility bills for water and energy usage.
Sorry, that's the bill you expect,
Up
or the
to
savings
a
you
decrease,
expect?
a
Okay.
savings, yeah.
Thank you.
Real quickly about marketing and how the unit's going to be affirmatively marketed. Are you also looking to work with the Housing Authority in some of their affordable home ownership programs that they operate?
Yes.
Yeah, we would work with Rick. We've spoken to the Housing Authority about some other projects, so we've connected with them and then with the URA as well. We also spoke to to Lawrenceville Corp because they had a community land trust program, and so we'd like to connect to the community partners as we market this home, and also connect to the community of Garfield as we look to market this affordable home and try to place a family ideally of 3 into this neighborhood who may not be able to afford this quality of housing otherwise. So we'll do our best to lean on our community partners to help.
Will there be a community land trust at some point that's kind of helping to steward this 99-year affordability period?
Not on this house, because it is a partnership with Module. What the land trust is going to do when it gets its 501c3 status is it's probably going to become what I would describe as a successor organization to the Bloomfield Garfield Corporation. We are working on another project right now with the board of the land trust, similar to the one on Stanton Avenue, preservation project for 16 apartments on Penn Avenue. When we do additional new housing development in Garfield, if it's with Module, we will try to set up a project where the land trust may own the land and Module builds on top of the land. So they've got their application into the IRS. They weren't ready to do this project, so we're going to go with the 99-year commitment in terms of affordability. I think in the future, if this house proves to be a model that we can use elsewhere in Garfield, then we have an abundance of city-owned properties that can be targeted for additional development of this unit, and bringing the land trust in as a partner with us will be possible.
Like even if they don't own the land, they can help steward that.
Yes, they can. We're listening to the comments from the gentleman from the Fair Housing Partnership. We have a bit of a conundrum that's facing neighborhoods like ours. We want to stimulate development to happen. We want the development to be high quality. We want the development to also be able to bring wealth to the future owner. So you're balancing all of these variables, and you also are taxing the subsidy network with projects like this. I think there's going to have to be some further discussion among the advisory board and with URA and others, because I think ultimately my advice would be to take a portion of the deed transfer tax that the city is collecting, and I know Mark Masterson has voiced this idea as well, peel off some of that money and do a revenue bond issue, so that when developers like Module and or BGC come to the table, we're not pulling grant funds right out of the Housing Opportunity Fund. Instead, you would have a revenue bond program of maybe 25 to 30 million that would, in effect, be able to pay for what I would describe as the infrastructure costs associated with the project, the 50 to 60,000 that attend to almost every single family house that's built. So you have to make that variable, you have to have an answer to that challenge. It's not going to be done strictly on the strength of the Housing Opportunities Fund home ownership support program. You've got to come at this with a different tool. You're going to have this challenge in Homewood. You're going to have this challenge in the Hill District. You're going to have it in Hazelwood as well. So this is kind of a precursor to what we hope, to see happen, so that Garfield and Larimer and Hazelwood and other communities don't become all rental neighborhoods. And the only home ownership that happens is market rate. So in effect, 50 years down the road, if the Housing Opportunity Fund did not exist, Garfield would eventually become a neighborhood of white homeowners and black tenants. And that's not the future that we want to be working towards. And I don't think any other neighborhood would want that as their future either. So there can't be that kind of bifurcation. There has to be the ability to offer home ownership through either new construction or renovation to families at 80% or below the median income. Sorry for the editorial.
Are you?
And if anyone ever wants to help us think through the repayments on bonds, let me know, because we've really looked into it a lot at the URA, and where it becomes very tricky is the repayment stream. Yeah, but right, but then that's city commitments in the future that cross different administrations. Right.
Let knowledge work on.
I'd have that conversation.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody else with questions, comments?
No questions, sorry.
Recommend approval for $70,000 grant to develop one affordable home on Black Street in Garfield.
And with the commitment expiring February 1st, 2020. Can I have a second? Okay, Joanna first, Mark seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Y'all can come back to the table. Okay.
Actually, before you
To the screen. Okay.
before you go on, I get to ask my questions.
Yep.
Just one question. The pending NHP, is that another URA second deferred mortgage program?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And then the other question, actually, Joanna asked it earlier about kind of how with the whole race issue. And, it was just a damning report, written about Pittsburgh and race. It was great to hear the response. I think it was from Rick. But I want to just kind of go on record beyond that. We need to be thinking about every program and how all of our decisions really intersect with that. And I don't think we've been intentional enough. So I just want to kind of put that on and reiterate the comments that were already said, that we need to really think about that from a more global strategy and not just kind of one deal as we talked about it today.
Absolutely.
Sorry. I was just going to say, to piggyback Derek's comments, I know that we have been collecting data as we go, and I'd like to, for us at some point, to review that so we can figure out how we're marketing. I'm obviously in the community a lot as part of my role, and I know that there are certain communities that I haven't heard of some of the things that we do here, even though we feel like we've been penetrating the market pretty well. So just so we can make sure that we're pivoting and getting the help to where it's most needed, and I think reviewing all of our data will help with that.
One of the things we talked about was when we do the need to review our guidelines and like our program guidelines and criteria to integrate something like what you're talking about, so that it was more like a question in the applications, and things like that too.
Sure.
Agreed. And Jamie keeps track of all the data, and we can, have a special session or do as part of this at some point and kind of show you all the data in terms of, race, age, gender, all that.
Yeah, I think that's a good starting point. And from there, we can continue to, talk strategy and other things.
And I think an actual look at the applications that people are filling out to see about what kind of questions we could use to make sure that we're intentional and putting that onus on them to provide us with some of that information would be helpful as well.
Okay, well, we'd like to spend the rest of the time going through just the programs, giving you some updates on them, talk about some policy discussions that I think we'll just need to have over the upcoming couple months as we prepare for the 2020 allocation plan. And so let's get started here with some of these slides, and you do have hard copies of the slides in front of you. But here are commitments and closings to date. So, I mean, it looks pretty great. We've been operating for a year. So, so that just shows all the commitments and closings from the programs, and we'll kind of go through it now program by program. So next slide. Okay, so HAP, and we should have fully put the titles on the slide, so I apologize. Homeowner Assistance Program. For the newer members to the committee, the Homeowner Assistance Program is the program where homeowners can get up to $30,000 worth of repair done to their house. The first $5,000 is in the form of a straight out grant that they never repay, and the remaining $25,000 gets recorded as a deferred mortgage, but they do not pay on that while they live in the house. It's 0% interest, and it becomes due at transfer of the property. And you can see the locations of the houses we've done. And I did specifically ask Sharon to come today in case you have any questions specific to her who sees these applications. And now Derek is on board to work with these applications as well. Because as you can see here, 37 applications have been approved. And we've really been operating pretty much since May or June. So it's 37 have been approved and 25 have been denied. And we have another 65 like right there that we're working with figuring out how to we're working with program administrators who are doing a few at a time, so as they are able to get more, we're passing them on, and over the next couple months have collectively and with others at the URA and our construction department figuring out ways to get more and more program administrators on board, and also potentially contractors as well, to move these applications quickly. But you can see the reason why the 25 that have been denied, the reasons for it. You can see over income on there. I do want to remind everybody that this program is for households really below 50% AMI. We have a very small set aside. I think it was $250,000 for households between 50 and 80, but because it was so small, it is for water and sewer repairs. And we have done a couple of those, like $3,000 to $5,000 repairs out of that pot of funding. But the thing that we'll need to talk about moving forward as we move towards the allocation plan is we do have a program at the URA to help the 50 to 80% folks, but it is a completely different program with underwriting done by a bank and monthly payments, and it is completely different. So we are looking at ways to kind of combine the programs into one. It doesn't mean they can't have different payment terms, but these are conversations that we're having at the URA right now, and I'd like the feedback from the advisory board as we move forward with that.
When people are delinquent on taxes, are they encouraged to get on a payment plan so that they can?
Yes, and if they are current on the payment plan, Sharon, how many months do they have to be current on the payment plan? 6 months.
And then if it's not in their name, are they encouraged to talk to the legal services to have
Yes.
title help?
So thank you for pointing that out. the one that says title issues, those folks, they've been temporarily turned down, but we do still have their files, and we have been working with Neighborhood Legal Services on a scope of work for them to do the Tangle title work, but they will be referred to Neighborhood Legal Services as soon as they're under contract.
To get a sense, I mean, that's a lot of denials. You know, it's a higher percentage than what I would hope for. But how many of those were over income versus other issues, roughly, like as a percentage? Five out of the total, you know, over 100 some applicants, 5 were over income. Okay.
And what's the number one denial reason, would you say?
What do you think, Sharon? Taxes? Right.
They will be able to get that property in their name, and we have a list of that. So, but it's not denied permanently.
Sure.
This is just, they're not approved right now.
So relative to taxes, I heard 6 months. So does that mean that they have to make 6 consecutive payments before they could reapply?
Yes.
Does
Proof that they, right.
Make them reapply. Just
Sure.
as long as they can update that, then we would accept that.
I guess I have some issues with that. I understand taxes need to be paid. It would seem that getting on a payment plan and maybe making one payment should be something that's acceptable, because this is also a affordability issue. This is also a income issue. Part of the reason they're coming to us is because they're having some income challenges, and they're probably living in substandard situations, which further mean that they need this. And then also, I bet you that this is directly connected to race as well. If we dive deeper into this, there will be a lot of African Americans impacted by this. So I just feel like that alone could be doing more hurt than harm, and there could be a more creative way to helping them get back on track, but also helping them. And I think 6 months is too far to kick the ball down the road.
Okay.
I think rebuilding together, they just say you have to be on the payment plan.
Right.
Like you have to show that you got on a payment plan.
Exactly.
We're going to revise the guidelines for most of these programs. Now that we've been operating for our pilot year, coming into 2020, we're going to start revising some of the program guidelines based on conversations like this, so we can look into the taxes. We cannot waive the tax requirement because we are a government agency, but we can look into if we can give any more flexibility on that.
Just to get a sense, how many are turned down because of tax delinquent issues, roughly? Okay, so that's the big problem that we've got to get utilization of the program.
Because 6 months, you think if you apply now, because I need a new roof before winter comes, but it's October, you've got snow in your house all winter before you can come back to get your roof repaired, and now you need, your repairs have snowballed from what could have been fixed with 30 to now, much more substantial repairs.
I do want everyone, though, to zoom in, though, on the fact that there are 65 more coming through, because we're going to show you slides here later on of the funding that's been expended and the funding remaining. And I do understand that we need to figure out the taxes, but my overall concern as the people that are looking at these budgets every day is that we're going to run out of money, even with the folks that are approved, for taxes. So I just keep that in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Next slide, Evan. This is just showing you one of the first homes that was done. These are kind of interior repairs, but it was in Manchester, and just showing you the types of repairs that people can get done to their house through this program.
And have we planted a yard sign in the front yard that said, this was done with HOF funding?
Yeah, we have not yet. But
Okay,
we will look
please,
into that.
we need to start tooting the horn. These are taxpayer funds.
Okay.
It's helpful for people to see that they're being put to a good use.
Okay. This is DPCC, is down payment closing costs. assistance. This is a separate program. HAP is the one we were just talking about, homeowner assistance program. But this is just really showing the locations. The down payment closing cost assistance program, 37 have closed, 11 more will be closing in the next 2 weeks. Because usually, Sharon, you get those applications about 2 weeks ahead of time before closing. And for the newer members, that's a program that people can get up to $7,500 to purchase their first home in the city of Pittsburgh.
So let me ask a question on the down payment assistance. I've had some conversations with some lenders, and they're saying that the process is delaying the closing almost up to 60 days. So I don't know if that's, I just wanted to.
Yeah.
So what's the time that someone comes in the door
Right.
until they actually get approved, and what's the time frame
It's
for
very
that?
quick.
Yeah, it's a couple of weeks at the max.
At the max.
Yeah, that's not, no, let that person talk to me. Okay. It's never been 60 days.
It's just so people understand. For this program, most everybody, I would say 98% of people using this program are getting a first mortgage from a lender. So the lender actually fills out the application and sends the backup that they have received to underwrite their loan and their underwriting determinations to us. So it is relatively quick for us just to verify our agreement with their assumptions and then to get the paperwork processed for the loan.
Okay, thank you.
With that program, is it possible to get a breakout of the banks that are utilizing this so we have an understanding? Because we work with a lot of different banks. And okay, great. Well, there's several banks that we work with that I do daily, and if I can help get the word out, but I don't want to do that if somebody's already is aware of it. But if there's some help, I'd be glad to do that.
Yeah, and I will say on that too, Mark, we have, there probably are some banks that use it more than others, and we are trying to figure out some of the reasons why. And I did have a conversation with a lender the other day where they have a program where they can lend up to 97% of value. And so what was happening is when we were giving our down payment money to cover closing costs, that would make it exceed 100% of value, and there was some like underwriting trickiness there. So we're trying to work through all those details to make sure that all the local lenders can participate in the program.
And yeah, really just pertaining to that, we need to make sure all the lenders are aware, because I'm sure there's buyers missing out just because the lenders aren't, putting this into play, but also so that the applicants themselves are aware, so that if the lenders don't know, they can say, hey, I think I will qualify for these funds. Can you, start the process? So I think, what can we do to speak to more banks, but also what can we do to get this to consumers?
I'll take any suggestions you have. When we first started in the first quarter, we did billboards, and that actually worked pretty well. Like, people would go into their bank and say, hey, I saw such and such a billboard. So we could potentially do that again, or any other ideas that people have.
What about like the credit recovery programs that people have to go through? Are they also talking about these type of programs?
Neighborhood, like NeighborWorks, and yes, we've met with all of them. And then, in fact, Vatina did a series of meetings at NeighborWorks.
So one thing is, to give you an idea now, is the Federal Home Loan Bank. Not all, but most banks are members of Federal Home Loan Bank. So really sending some type of information directly to them for them to distribute to all their members is one way. And then I think just us, really, maybe an e-blast or something, directly communicating with as many lenders that we know. So just two ideas.
Federal Home Loan Bank has their own program, but it's often used, I think, by this
We can
time.
tier together.
We can stack.
Oh, and you can stack it too.
Yeah.
They might not have any more money.
Well, that's the thing. This is to leverage another source. So if they're aware of it, they can, tell their members to use it. Yeah.
Okay, next slide.
That HAP,
wait,
was
go
that,
back.
that the same information was that the same information we saw on the previous slide?
Yes, yes, it is. So Bettina's coming up to talk to you a little bit about housing stabilization program. We had a pretty in-depth conversation last month, though I know Mark had asked at the end to kind of revisit some of the processes. So the next couple of slides speak to that.
Yep. Hello, everyone. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of the program for the new advisory board members and the staff as well. The Housing Stabilization Program is meant to be a housing crisis prevention program targeted towards renters who are experiencing a temporary, non-reoccurring setback by providing limited short-term financial assistance to help them access and maintain safe, stable, and affordable permanent housing. Eligibility requirements for the program include city residency. They must be below 50% area median income, and they must be experiencing some kind of short-term, non-reoccurring setback. Yep. And this is just a copy from the slide that was brought to the advisory board last month and then approved by the URA board as well last month. These just show the figures for the 2018-2019 combined contracts for the service providers, with the exception of Neighborhood Legal Services, which we are currently working with to get a scope of services and to get them under contract for the eviction prevention legal services. So this provides a breakdown of the number of applications that we have received to date. As you can see, we are expending this money quite quickly. In a 3-month period, we have assisted 102 clients. So with the combined 2018-2019 contract, we estimated assisting about 306 clients through this program. We are at 102 right now. So we are expecting to run out of funds for this program in the next 6 to 9 months. So it is going very quickly. As you see, YWCA is already 50% over on their contract, so they are dipping into 2019 funds at this point. So it is going very quickly, and you can also see the huge increase from August to September. We received 57 we assisted 57 clients in the month of September compared to August with 25. So now that we have the systems in place and all the service providers are now working at full force, we only expect these numbers to increase throughout the month.
Right. I mean, I just want to zone in on the green. I mean, that's 57 in 1 month. And also just to reemphasize what Bettina just said, like the YWCA, for example, is already now needing the 2019 money that we approved last month. Like they're already in it right now. So like we're rushing to get their contract re-signed and everything. So that is how fast people are going through this.
Right. And so when we talk about the 2020 discussions coming up, I think it's important to see how quickly these funds are going for this particular program, and also ask ourselves what is going to happen with YWCA when they run out of funds, or all these programs run out of funds in the next 6 or 9 months. How are we going to fund these programs and continue to make sure that the work is getting done and there isn't a stop in this program?
Yeah, next slide.
So this is just some of the, we are collecting a variety of indicators for this program and for all the programs as well. This is some data from Jamie that she collected, and like Jessica said earlier, we can definitely provide that information on the demographics that we are collecting for the HSP program. These 2 indicators just show that a majority of the clients are in their 30s, and that a majority of the clients fall at or underneath the 30% area median income.
They're in their 30s and most of them fall at or below.
So a majority of them are in their 30s, and then a majority of them fall at or below 30% AMI.
Are there statistics on how many folks that applied weren't able to get it, or didn't qualify?
And is there a racial demographic?
Yeah, the racial demographic, we had it on there, and we were just trying to cut down the number of slides, but it's about 95% African American.
So what we have, to answer your question about applications and denials, what we still do not have but will when United Way is under contract is people who are
turned away either temporarily or because they're flat out ineligible by phone call. So we still don't have that, but we do have reasons for those who get into the process, at least past like a first initial screening, the reasons why they don't make it. In addition to the indicators that you see on the slides, we do have information about protected classes, not only race and ethnicity, but also disability status, sources of income, use of non-cash benefits, and we'll be happy to share that with you as like what Jessica was suggesting, I guess, an add-on session. We felt that those indicators were a little bit more of a sensitive nature, so we just gave you these two as a way to show. These are some things that we can look at, to Derek's point, in order to be strategic and forward-thinking and plan ahead when it comes to our marketing and outreach.
So you're saying you have the data about people turned away?
We have information now about people who are turned away after they've gone through an initial like screening of some kind. We don't have information about why people are turned down when they're flat out ineligible from like a very quick phone call. We will have that information from all the calls that go in through 211.
Yes. Okay, so we don't have, you're gonna share it, or are you just saying you have it?
No, we can do, if the idea is to have this session, we can share all of the information that we have, and talk about.
But what I think Jamie is saying is, once 211 is in place and under contract, we will have a much better way of being able to share that information, like the information of people that are turned down and referred to another program, and maybe why that referral was made to another program.
Yeah, but we'll make sure that we bring what we do have now to that session, to that question and any others that you have.
And is there an appeal process, which is
We're
my
getting to it.
consistent question?
Yeah. Hold on, just one or two more slides.
Oh, it's the next one.
Yeah.
Did anyone have any questions about these before we move on to the appeal process? Okay. So now that we have Brianna on our team, which we are very excited about, Brianna will be assisting primarily with the Housing Stabilization Program. So this is a revised appeal process based on the feedback that we received from the advisory board last month. It still works in a similar fashion, as in once someone goes through the full intake process, and if a service provider deems them not or ineligible for the program, the service provider will then send out a letter or notify the client the reason why they were not eligible for the program, steps they can take to become eligible. For example, if it's that they need to find or identify a more affordable unit for them, or things like that. They will have instructions on how to file an appeal. So based on the feedback from last month, we did implement a messaging system through Google Voice. People can call in and leave a message. Brianna will be the one in charge of collecting that. She can listen to it, but it will also send her the written version of that message as well. So she will be compiling all of the messages and then relaying that to the appeals committee. We are still deciding on how frequently the appeals committee will meet. So those are things that we're still ironing out. But we are hoping to have some kind of in-person or have the appeals committee members discuss it instead of just sending in a response, so that we can better understand their decision-making or voting process for whether approving or denying an applicant. Once the decision has been made, then Brianna will relay the final decision to the client. So this is just the basic framework for what our appeals process will look like. It'll still be 5 members, so you are a staff person, United Way staff person, DHS staff person, and which were the other 2?
Advisory board members.
Yes, and then 2 advisory board members, which was Adrian and Kelly. Right. Did anyone have any questions about this appeals process so far? So we have an implementation date that we're aiming for, both for implementing United Way and this appeals process, which would be November 4th. So
I just had a quick question. Is a voicemail the only way to leave to appeal, or are there multiple methods?
So we were thinking about employing multiple methods, but it seemed like the voice was the most accessible way for folks to file an appeal as compared to a letter. That's something we can definitely discuss. We just want to make sure we streamline the process.
I would like for us to consider maybe doing a voice and maybe an email option as well.
That's fine.
Because it's equally fast, but sometimes you allows you to get your thoughts together.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible voicemail leaver, and so I'm sensitive to other people who just ramble and are ineffective.
Yeah.
In that medium.
That's fine.
And you can also text to the Google Voice number as well.
Oh, okay.
I think, if I remember Google
Okay.
Voice, but,
Okay.
you know, so
Yeah.
that,
Look into that too.
That would be great if we can mirror similar methods that United Way is employing, because you can call, text, message as well.
What did you say that actual timeline is? So if you're going to leave a voicemail to an actual decision,
So that is something that we are still ironing out as well. Some things we have to balance is the amount of the commitment it would take for appeals committee members to review these decisions and how frequently. But we do understand the sensitive nature of this program and that they would need a response fairly quickly. So that is something that we're working on right now. The proposed timeline last month was 7 business days from the time the appeal was filed to the time a decision is made, but that may change depending on how we finalize the structure for this.
Also, I think it would be good for you all to continue to give us updates like you did today. I know there's only 2 advisory board members officially on the appeals committee, but that the whole board is still kept in the loop about this, so that we can offer input. Like today, the input that was offered on changing the structure for the taxes, I think that needs to be an ongoing discussion. So keeping us in the loop.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. As we all know, our meetings always tend to go long. So one of the goals, I think, for 2020 is to figure out some type of emailable document that we email to you kind of on a regular basis, just in case there's not time at every meeting to go into it at this level. Next slide. Okay, so any other questions on HSP? All right, rental gap program. So here you can see the commitments and the closings made to the rental gap program. For the newer folks on the advisory board, this is a program primarily for developers and community organizations that are doing development to fill the gaps on the creation of new or the preservation of, like the Stanton Heights project, of rental affordable housing. So they tend to be slightly, larger chunks of funding, anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million for the creation of affordable housing. And you can see the commitments and the closings that we have had. There's only been 3 closings, but there are several more. I'm hoping by next month that number jumps up quite highly. They're definitely queuing up for closing. So I do want to point out a couple things on this, and after we go through these program by program, you'll see the expenditures, which is, I think, really important. But we are into 2019 funding on the rental gap program. There are a couple that have, the developer has told us they will be applying over the next month. So I do anticipate having, potentially having a lot, if not all, the line item committed in the next few months. A couple of things with this as we move into 2020 budgeting season while we think through what would need to be put in this item. One question that has came up a few times in the last couple months is PHFA has changed their process slightly with what's called 4% low-income housing tax credits. PHFA is Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. They're the state agency that issues tax credits for the development of projects. They issue what's called a 9% credit and a 4% credit. 9% credit is a competition once a year. 4% credit used to be sort of a rolling, though they are on a bit more of a timeline than they used to be for 4%, and require that when people do apply, which is sometimes about 9 months or even a year prior to closing, that they have a lot of their sources identified. So one thing that the staff at the URA has been thinking a lot about is how do we handle that? When we started with the HOF funding, we did not want to make, year-long commitments because we wanted to expend funding quickly, knowing that the years would just keep rolling on in. But I think we are to a point, knowing that we'll be fully committed on 2019 in a couple more months, that we are to a point of how do we handle potential future commitments so that people can apply for tax credits. And I don't have an answer for it today, but I just wanted to put that in your heads. Does anyone have any comments? If not, we can talk about it over the next couple months as we get closer to an allocation plan.
So I have one comment. I think we need to rethink this for a lot of reasons. The 9% tax credit's competitive. Only about 4 projects a year will get funded, maybe 5. 4% tax credits, really underutilized asset that needs to be utilized citywide, can really add a ton more of affordable units to the city as a whole. So a program like this is so critical to not just filling the gaps, but to really bridging the whole, affordability gap and creating more affordable housing. So if we're not creative, we're actually hurting the city in a big way. So definitely, I think we need to think of something like a longer commitment period, extended commitment period, to allow for this to really open up the floodgates for these 4% deals that need to happen across the city. So we won't just be talking about, 4 to 5 deals, but we'll be talking about 10 to 15 deals. And that's what we need.
So most of the 4% deals probably come to the URA, I'm guessing, so you're familiar with them. Do they have gaps that could be filled by the Housing Opportunity Fund?
Yes.
Okay. So there is a pipeline of projects that this would be a good fit for?
Yes. With that said, I agree with the comments you both just made, but sort of on the flip side of the coin, and why we're kind of thinking a lot about this, is we also want to make sure we always have the ability to fund types of deals like you saw today with Stanton Heights, where they just need a relatively small amount of money to be able to preserve existing housing. And so that's always been sort of in the back of our mind, because that project, we've been aware of that project for 20 years, but wasn't aware that, it would need the funding at this time. So there's a medium, like the question is, how do we achieve a medium balance of helping deals plan for the next couple of years versus having funding available for things as they come up?
I would think maybe some sort of set aside where we have within our allocation plan this chunk, and then maybe a set aside that is like, we're not touching this. Is for I don't want to say pop-ups, because no development is really a pop-up, right? But things that are a shorter time frame versus we know that you're going to need this in a year and a half, and we can do like a tentative set aside of 2021 funds,
Right.
Perhaps, but leave a chunk that's available to be more flexible with. That's just my first thought.
I just think that every program that we operate is going, we're going to butt up, and we're going to see this now that this is operating. Every one that we've picked is going to run out of money.
Yep.
There is a massive need for affordable housing in the city of Pittsburgh. Whether it's affordable home ownership to start dealing with wealth generation, with racial inequities that have been endemic in Pittsburgh, or if it's for 4% projects, or it's for the neighborhood base that doesn't need that much. We need more resources. And, we're going to fight over this shrinking, not fight, but there's going to be this discussion. So do you not help the person that for a couple of $1,000s, we're helping somebody not become homeless, or, funding the brick and mortar projects? This is something that we need for all of them. I don't think we're going to get by with the set aside, because that money is needed now for some of the consumer programs that we're going to be turning people away because of lack of funding. And it gets really difficult to sit here and say, We're not going to help folks that need it right now because we're going to do something that we also need to do to get life to these difficult 4% tax credit projects. So we need more money. We need to be telling our elected officials we need more money because we're going to run out really quickly. 2020 is going to be gone. My guess is before it could be out in 6 months, but probably more like 9 months we'll be out of money.
So just to add kind of two things. So the smaller, at least my understanding, the smaller preservation projects, that was really the whole intent around the landlord fund, to really that could be that fund to help with those projects, as opposed to having to pull from larger deals to do that. So anyway, that was just one thing. The second is we've heard it time and time again. I think Swain brought it up last month. I heard Bob say it today. We've all been talking about the need for more funding. The time is now. So I think we need to put together a committee, or maybe this whole board and whoever from, the audience wants to help, but we need to have a meeting and determine how we strategize to go talk to whoever we need to talk to advocate for more funds. The time is now. So yeah.
I like, oh, you were going to speak.
It's okay. I was just going to say that regardless of how much money we have, we're going to use it. Like, the need is so massive. So even if we had, no matter, the need for more money is obvious, right? But once we get there, we're still going to have a lot of these same issues. And I think that it's important for us to also be able to be brave and identify how to operate in this finite space. So if we have this amount of money, we should just make the call. So if it is to say, okay, we're going to choose this amount of money for certain 4% deals because we know it'll have that type of an impact, I think we just have to stand on that. Because there's always going to be an immediate need. We're going to run out of money no matter, every time we're going to run out of money. But we're going to have, but the money that I think we have to also accept the fact that we're using the money to have positive impact, right? So even though there's this space where we're not helping certain people because we ran out of funds, we still want to celebrate the amount of people that we were able to help with the funds that we had, right? So, and to your point, as far as 4% deals, if that does have a large impact, I think that we should think about that. Whether it's one or two projects that we want to leverage to say, okay, this amount of money is going to have that amount of impact next year, then I think I'm for that.
I definitely agree with your comments. We double it, we're going to run out of money, but we still need to double it. Yeah, the other thing is the most underutilized resource in the state of Pennsylvania is the 4% tax credit. We're talking about billions of dollars that aren't tapped into because we can't fill these gaps. So yes, I get it, everything's important, but we got a huge underutilized resource that is untapped, and we need to start tapping it. So, yeah.
We just have to keep an eye, too, on, how many projects we're getting to close, because we have 3 of 9 now, so we don't want more that are, waiting to close.
Right. That's correct. Okay. Next slide. And I'm conscious of time here, so we're going to try to go relatively quickly here. Here the for sale, I don't think that's correct with 18. Maybe it is on a unit count. It's unit. Okay. It's a unit count for sale. There's been about, I think, 4 projects that have been approved for sale. This one, I just in terms of pipeline and funding, we are still in 2018 money on this one. The 2018 line item was 1.25 and then 1.25 in 19. And we'll see expenditures in a little bit, but I think we're less than half committed, about a third committed, I think, out of 2018. So we still do have the 2019 line item here. We also have the the NSP, the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. The URA received a $2 million award from the state last year that can do very similar types of projects. So I did want to point out that this program seems to be relatively well funded at this point. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is just showing the programs, showing the 2018 allocation, 2019 allocation. Jamie's coming to the table because she can walk you through this better than I can.
Okay, so for the new advisory board members, there are each month we have a little bit of an update on the expenditures, but we also like to have something on the impacts of the programs. The things that you'll see every month are the next slide, which is just a list of what's allocated and committed and what's left. You will always see a breakdown of dollars and units by area median income, and you will always see a map of the investments to date. One thing that those of you who have been on the committee will notice about this slide is that we're missing a column. The column, can you go to the next one? The column that's missing is how many applications that we've received from developers and organizations. The reason is because we need to combine those 2 years. But you can always look in the right-hand column on what is not yet committed. I am, in the interest of time, just going to go to the next slide. What I want to draw your attention to here is that where last month we were pretty well in line with what the legislation holds us to in terms of the dollar breakdown by area median income, we're now at 51.35 and 14%. Those last two are supposed to be 25 and 25. I actually think this is not anything that we need to worry about. I think that the 50% that's going up right now is because of the homeowner assistance program and HSP, the rental assistance program, or crisis prevention program. I think that as the for sale development program continues, we'll see a little bit more of an evening out on that note. I'm available for questions if you'd like to contact us after the fact. I just know that there are a few more slides and we're past 11.
But I mean, just a couple of things to point out regarding expenditures. Maybe if you go back, yeah, maybe that's the best slide. Given the number of applications we have on hand for the HAP program, given the number of applications that kind of come in weekly on that one, that's the homeowner assistance program, and also given the fact we're really looking at ways to help those folks between 50 and 80% as well, that is something to keep in the forefront of our minds, that program will need, to be funded pretty heavily. The housing stabilization program, of course, you saw those statistics. You see how fast we're running out of money there. That also has, staff concerned about needing to have funds in place to continue to fund that through the future. So those are sort of the two that really stick out. But based on the 4% discussion we just had, the rental gap program might also need to be in that category. So, okay. So I guess that's it for expenditures. Next slide. Vatina's coming up. I know we're over time, but because we are going to need money for the housing stabilization program and the HAP program, we cannot really delay getting an allocation plan in place for 2020. So we are going to be reaching out to have special meetings with the advisory board over the next couple of months, next month or two, to talk about these things. We do have a training for advisory board members coming up in a week. Ms. Johnson, I don't know if I have that on your calendar or not. I will talk to you about that, but it's basically to go over all the URA programs, how they relate to these programs, to help you start to think through the need for some of this funding. I think that's on the 8th. So we do have that coming up, but Vatina's going to talk to you about our community outreach regarding the allocation plans, but we really want to be in a position at the absolute latest, and if we can move this up a month, that would be great, but the absolute latest to be in front of the advisory board with a preliminary plan in December, the final plan in January, so that it is approved in February by council. And that's really the absolute latest. If we can move it up or potentially even skip the preliminary portion so that we can get to get final approval in December and get to council in January, that would be great too. But, so.
Yeah, so I will go through this very quickly in the sake of time, but this is just part of a larger conversation that we will have when we're discussing the annual allocation plan meetings. So before I dive into the 2020 allocation plan meetings, I just wanted to provide a quick summary of what our ongoing HOF community engagement goals are. First, engage with a high volume of community members that are representative of the city, especially those who have been affected by the affordable housing crisis. We want to continue to formulate HOF programs based on the needs and wants of the community. We also want to employ various strategies to test out and expand engagement methods. There are 90 neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. Each one is unique, so we need to be employing a variety of strategies to ensure that we're engaging with the entire community. And then when possible, utilize services of outreach partners to deepen engagement within the community as well, and then to provide more opportunities for advisory board members to connect with the public. So prior methods in the past included the 2018 meetings hosted by Pittsburgh United, and then the citywide meetings held earlier this year in February and March, as you'll see on the map. Most recently, Pittsburgh United hosted a series of community meetings over the summer, and they did an amazing job. Unfortunately, they're not here right now, but I can attest that Jessica and I went to all the meetings actually, and they had Sharon, yes, and Jamie. So we had a variety of staff there, and at each one there was an outstanding amount of residents there. There were over 150 at the ones that I attended, and I know it was over 100 at each of the other meetings that I was not able to go to. And they did an amazing job connecting with the public and educating the public on our programs. We had genuine excitement for people coming up to our table, wanting applications. Jessica and I were winded after speaking with so many people. It was an amazing experience, though.
Yeah, they did an amazing job, Pittsburgh United, getting folks out, and I think the waiting lists that you see like on HAP is in part because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so in an effort not to duplicate the great work that was recently done by Pittsburgh United, we're looking to try a different method this year to connect and gather feedback from the public. So our approach for 2020 annual allocation plan meetings is really going to be focused on meeting people where they're at and in their communities. We are going to accomplish this by attending existing community meetings and events in their neighborhood. Our upcoming meeting is actually next Saturday, and an invite will be sent out to all the advisory board members who can attend. We are partnering with Councilwoman Kale Smith on her District 2 Housing and Resource Fair that she is sponsoring. It is from 11 to 2 p.m. in Crafton Heights. HOF will be hosting 2 feedback sessions and then also be tabling at the event. As well. We had past success with this method. For example, staff attended the Bedford Block Party, and so HOF staff was really able to have a conversation and dialogue with residents as opposed to just a presentation. They were able to collect feedback, answer questions, and also distribute the survey and collect feedback. So those are things that we're looking to duplicate and collect feedback for the annual allocation plan and throughout the rest of the year. And then also just notifying the public of opportunities to engage with staff. We are going to be marketing the meetings that we're going to be attending heavily through our channels, but we're asking advisory board members to also push that out throughout their own networks so that we're capturing a wide range and variety of people. And I think it's really important, again, to emphasize that we really want to meet people where they're at in their own neighborhoods. And so things that we would need or would like to ask from the advisory board in order to be successful is that we will be putting forth a list of community meetings and events that we will be attending. Please review that list and let us know and provide feedback to ensure that we are engaging all communities. If there are any meetings or events that are not on there that should be, please bring it to our attention and we will make sure that it is well staffed. And then also, you are, of course, more than welcome to attend these community events. We really encourage it so that you do have the opportunity to meet with people directly and speak with them to hear their feedback and their comment on HOF. And then again, just assisting in distributing the meeting and event information and particularly the survey. Did anyone have any questions on that very fast overview?
What was the date for the crafted meeting?
It is next weekend, October 12th on Saturday from 11 to 2 p.m. And then I'll send out an invite to everyone with the exact address.
We're not engaging any of the partners that we did the RFP to solicit.
Not for this not for the 2020, since we're going to be going out to the communities. So we're partnering with neighborhood organizations and community groups already on that front, but we will be hopefully engaging them for future like marketing and outreach.
A lot
throughout
of them
the
were
year.
digital media groups. Like that was more their specialty than outreach. So given the fact that Pittsburgh United meetings just happened, and we, the URA, we always want to be good partners to our community development corporations, and then the meetings that they're having. I thought like this was a good strategy, but we might retain one or two of the firms to do some digital outreach around it. We are looking into that.
So at these meetings that you attend, is it going to be similar to your past meetings where you'll kind of update people about the opportunity fund, share draft allocation plan?
Yeah, so it's going to be a combination of both probably. If there is, time on the agenda and the facility and everything for us to do what you've seen us do in the past, we will. If it's more of a community event where just sitting at a table and passing out surveys and flyers is more appropriate, then we would do that.
Yeah, so we do have a paper survey that we'll be distributing this year instead of the clickers, just because of the nature of the meetings that we're going to. And then we'll also ask the public to complete a worksheet where they can allocate funds for 2020 with each of the line items from 2018 and 2019. And then there's also space on the survey to for any additional programs they'd like to see funded for 2020.
So what's the finish line for the 2020 allocation? When will that, what sort of at the end, what's the deadline that we need to make a recommendation to the URA board?
Well,
what date?
Well, right. So what I said a few minutes ago is the latest that I feasibly would be comfortable with, which would be a preliminary in December, final in January. That would be the second week of January, and then going on to council the second half of January and into February.
I would, strongly urge, I'm like a broken record on this, but Pittsburgh United's been doing a great job. We need to continue those meetings, because what we wound up with last year was not a very representative sample, and we needed to get more folks that were renters to a large meeting downtown, and I really don't. I don't think that's fair to the majority of residents in the city are now renters, and we need to make sure that we're hearing from them, especially from low-income renters. Pittsburgh United has done a great job of turning out community across the board, so I would hope that we would find a way to incorporate a couple of meetings that they were organizing, because they're getting to places that the staff isn't getting to.
And even CDCs don't always pull big audiences or representative audiences in the community. And I think, you're giving them, have you talked to them about whether they felt this would be something that they would want to do, or, that they felt it was duplicative, or if they felt was that conversation?
Yeah, so these are all good questions. I would say we're certainly not limited to CDCs, and in fact, the community organizations that we have on the calendar so far from the mayor's office are not majority CDCs. This is, though, the reason why we would really prefer to advance that list to you, so that if something looks off or if something's missing, we can kind of refine that. I think, Mark, to your point about hosting a meeting, and especially leveraging the strengths of Pittsburgh United, those are all really good points. I think for this time around, the idea was to expand on the methods that we're using, and to kind of acknowledge that in the past 10 months, we've had probably 10 between our own and Pittsburgh United's HOF specific meetings. We think that in order to expand on what we've heard from the populations that have turned out to those meetings, it will be valuable to meet people in the community organizations so that we have a more well-rounded picture and so that we can find out, is this an effective method or not?
Will you guys be sharing with people the outcomes of the funding so far? Because I feel like that'll be a big thing, right? Because we're always asking, where do you think the money should go? But we finally have like information about where it went and like who has helped.
Yeah.
So is that part of what we'll be
The
sharing?
same slides, absolutely. Okay. Any other questions regarding this process? Okay, if not, moving on. Just want to remind everybody that budget hearings do occur in city council chambers in November and December. So we are not actually allowed to use this room because it will be busy in November and December. So the advisory board meetings will be on the 13th floor of the URA, which is located at 200 Ross Street. And I think that's it, unless there's any other questions or comments from the advisory board. Okay, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.